And that's kind of cute, kind of cool, as we have, spawning up in the top right, looking to make it into the grand finals. From NC Sports, it's Serral.
And that, of course, means that his opponent is spawning in the bottom left side. He is having one of the best runs of his entire beautiful career so far. It is the German Protoss representing Berlin International Gaming. This is ShoWTimE.
Now, I wanna draw the comparison there a little bit because I think it's super interesting how Hero Marine, same deal, maybe not as much prestige in the rest of the pro scene for that 6 to 7 year period, but everyone knew he was extremely good. He just maybe wasn't quite as terrifying as ShoWTimE, but it was when other Terran players started to rise in Europe, when you had Spirit. Euthermal had been around for a long time, but he was starting to compete very effectively. But the big one was, of course, Clem. When Clem came onto the scene, and all of a sudden people were like, no, he's not the best player in Europe anymore, or not the best Terran player in Europe, it's Clem. That's when Hero Marine was like, no, no, no. And then, since then, he had that legendary IEM Katowice run, did incredibly well, and now ShoWTimE is doing something similar. Very neat that the German players need, someone else to come up and challenge. And it's like iron sharpening iron, and all of a sudden now they're hitting their stride and they're showing us their best selves, and that's just beautiful to me.
It really is beautiful, but ShoWTimE, of course, has been very strong over the years. He did win a big DreamHack back then in the finals against NerdShow, and that was an amazing finals, a great tournament. So ShoWTimE has been there, done that. For the longest time, he's just kind of been, yeah, you are the guy when it comes to Protoss. Unfortunately for you, you're not the guy when it comes to the big events, because there is a Clem, Serral, and Raynor that will often stop you. And sometimes, of course, Gabe could stop him, or Lambo. But ShoWTimE really was the Protoss European hope for the longest time. I think it's only good that we have a few more guys reaching his level, but it's also fantastic to see ShoWTimE saying like, hey guys, I might be getting a little older, but I haven't peaked yet. And the one thing we can definitely say about ShoWTimE is that he's always been a very solid and honest Protoss player, right? Like, can he cheese? Of course he'll throw in a cheese once in a blue moon, but I always feel he's got a beautiful approach to the game where it really just comes down to stabilizing, which is why we call him the Mauer.
Yeah, and we saw it yesterday. There was at least a couple of times in his series versus Lambo where I was looking at it, I'm like, ShoWTimE's looking to be in a pretty tough position. He's down sometimes 40, 50, 60 supply, having a really tough go of things. But he never really looks like that much danger. It just looks like it on the surface. Then a big attack comes in and he just smacks it down, and he does it over and over again. It's damn impressive.
I think this is one of the most fun things about getting ready for this best of 7, as obviously everything is relatively standard so far, but we saw ShoWTimE play against Lambo. And obviously we know how good Lambo is. We know that Lambo is aware of all the things that ShoWTimE can do, just like Serral has done his homework. Yet ShoWTimE was the one who obviously came out on top in that series. That was a best of 5, and it's really going to be very interesting to see what Serral's approach will be for this entire best of 7. Does Yoda have a couple of little tricks up his sleeve? Is he going to throw in a random build or two? Or is it all just going to be very standard, straightforward, macro-oriented gameplay out of Serral? And does he believe that even if ShoWTimE gets up to 4 bases, 85 probes, that he's totally fine, because he is Serral and he's so good with pretty much every single army composition in this game?
Yeah, he's just a player that's comfortable. Never going to be the kind of guy that you're like, well, it got to this stage of the game, Serral's not comfortable. No, he's good at everything. And obviously, he focuses a little bit more on certain things. Nice deflection to start things off. I want to point out something very nice that Serral did right there, that he also did in his series versus Raynor, when Raynor picked Protoss on Stargazers. He sent the second Overlord across the map. First of all, he's got one on the bottom right, one on the left, and he positions it just so nicely, instantly sees the timing of the third base. Knowing a 10-second difference on that timing is actually quite a big deal. Speaking of big deals, picking off the Adept and going to kill this pylon.
Ooh, look at the Oracle as well, actually taking a lot of damage from the Queens there, beautifully shown in our picture-in-picture in the bottom right side. That really hurts. These are the little things where normally as a Zerg you feel you can't really get too much done, and it's all about not losing drones. Serral's like, no, I can get something done, and I believe this was a triple Oracle opening as well. So we have 3 Oracles that haven't killed anything yet, and they were out of position to protect at a depth, protect the pylon, and protect 1 or 2 of those probes. definitely kind of a rough start for ShoWTimE, and Serral is going to be quite pleased with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be something that, well, you just feel good about. Now we've got a... Okay, this is something also that ShoWTimE was doing in the previous series. Yesterday versus Lambo, I believe it was on Tropical Sacrifice. We're used to seeing him play that hero style where he goes blink +1. It's what, what he likes to do, but he mixed things up. He went for the charge instead, charge lot Archon, and was able to pick off the 4th base. It didn't snowball the game from there, but it was different. It was something different, and we've always thought about Protoss as a very honest race with ShoWTimE.
Queens are going to make their way over here, and I actually do think that the Queens will be able to save the hatchery. And to me, this shows that ShoWTimE is getting a little desperate. I mumbled a little wow in there once or twice, because I'm stunned. ShoWTimE has done these Oracle openers for almost 2 or 3 years now. He loves it. He's such a good player with the Oracles. He knows where they need to be. He knows how to find damage. We are 6 minutes into the first game. This was not double Oracle, it was triple Oracle, and he has killed 0 drones. And that's not because ShoWTimE suddenly forgot how to use Oracles or, where to find for damage, but it's just Serral has done a very good job in being annoying with the Lings and always having the Queens in the correct spot. These could be the first drones going down, but this is insane because ShoWTimE can play another 50 PVZs, and I'll guarantee you, if he goes triple Oracle StatFest, he will kill drones. But so far in this game, 0 workers have gone down.
Yeah, it looks like, once again, there's that lockdown defense from Serral. Very well done. Responding once again. We saw a cheeky little move. Yuna wants to go, or rather Serral wants to go Hydra Ling Bane right here. But he actually, as the Oracles kind of deked into the natural, he canceled that Hydralisk Den. But I'm not sure, was he just instantly rebuilt it, right? He wasn't building 2 at a time. But I think he wanted to keep that hidden, or maybe show even that, okay, you've caught my plan, I'm not actually going to go for it, and now he will. We do have ShoWTimE moving out on the map, which is funny because he's got a lot of Stalkers, I believe, and they're kind of trying to get represent Blink, but there is no Blink, so it's
mostly about the Zealots, obviously, right?
Yeah.
The Zealots with +1 and charge. This is one of these moments where if Serral would have been very greedy, was not in position, didn't make anything happen on the other side of the map, there is a good chance that the Stalkers, sometimes they have this awkward dance with the Queens. They fire a bit, the Queens heal each other up, but nothing truly happens. But if suddenly 12 Zealots storm in with +1 and charge, they can absolutely make the difference there. But Serral has just been all over this game, man. He really is putting on a masterclass. And it's kind of crazy because it's 8 minutes and you might be like, well, ShoWTimE has barely lost anything. What's so special? The fact that Serral has not lost anything against the way that ShoWTimE has been playing. This is a nice little move though by Dimauer. That's going to give him a little bit of confidence. Few Zealots getting a cancel on that hatchery in the top left side. Oh. But besides this, I have been incredibly impressed by the gameplay of Serral so far.
Yeah, it has been quite strong. He got up to 72 drones by the 6-minute mark, which is a very nice benchmark for anyone who's trying to, improve your Zerg play. Obviously, you should already be looking at Serral anyways, but you can see that this game in particular is a very strong one.
We are obviously one bad attack away from this being a great game for ShoWTimE, right? And that's kind of the way how these PVZs can play out. If the Zerg players do go for Ling, Bane, Hydra, ShoWTimE does have Storm on the way. ShoWTimE does have a decent amount of cannons and batteries, and at this point he's got the economic lead. So this is where things are going to get really fun. Serral, beautiful defense against the Oracles, beautiful defense against the Zealots, had a good little run by with the Lings once or twice. But this attack is very important, because if all these Banes just crash into nothing, or one Archon with battery overcharge saves the day, then Serral is actually going to be in a lot of trouble. So here we go, StatFest, first sports fields go down. I think we could maybe go for a battery overcharge, but ShoWTimE is just kind of casually waiting. And so far, Dimauer is absolutely living up to his name, but there is a gap.
There is a gap on the top left side. We do have it getting broken through. Sidestorm not yet done. 2 seconds, 1 second. The Banelings will not connect. However, is it going to matter? The Lings are going to get on top of this. They killed 2 of the High Templar, force that Archon morph. The 1 storm that came down wasn't enough there. And while Dimauer holds, it wasn't clean enough. I don't think. He is still alive in this game, certainly.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
he's going to be vulnerable to this next attack.
Serral actually could have picked off that one Archon that the Lynx were fighting on the low ground. That Archon was like less than half a second away, I think, from getting picked off. Instead, Serral decided to bring the Lynx back. ShoWTimE is now going to try to make something happen with these Stalkers, as they do have Blink. So it's not the Storm that finished off, the Stalkers have Blink now as well. The cannons and batteries are somewhat ready for the second round. Few Banelings are going to crash in. Archons are going to try to save the day, but once more, we just lack a couple of units to keep these High Templars safe. And Serral really is throwing everything he has at ShoWTimE here in game 1, but it does seem to be good enough as we're going to unpower the batteries. There are still 1 or 2 Banelings with +2 melee looking to connect with all these probes. I have the feeling that the great Jonas Sutala has pretty much done it. The gateways are low on HP, the cannon is low on HP. And just like that, after 11 minutes, Serral takes the 1-0 lead.
That was a great game 1. Incredibly close to a clutch hold from ShoWTimE. I think the key moment, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, was as the gateway went down at the top of the wall. He was holding actually very nice. The stasis wards were beautiful. They got so much done. They created a little force field pathway where he was able to throw down 2 extra force fields. He got a couple of Banelings to some Archon splash that were in the middle of those stasis Zerglings. The stasis ward on the right side was great, prevented a Ling run by into the natural from getting in. But then that gateway went down. And I think you mentioned he could have gone for a battery overcharge. I think that was the move. If he goes for that and he's targeting that on the gateway that's being attacked by the Hydras, I think that defense is a lot more straightforward and he can maybe focus a little bit more on keeping those High Templar alive. If he keeps the High Templar alive, I think we're still in game.
Yep, we were just a couple of units away from those High Templars being safe and able to just hang in there, drop storms, push Serral back. And make no mistake, if Serral does get properly pushed back there and ShoWTimE does not lose any probes, Serral's going to be in quite some trouble because it's just Hydra, Ling, Bane against Storm. Yeah, if you have overwhelming economy, you have way more bases, obviously you can do that kind of stuff, you can get a bit reckless. But ShoWTimE was actually the one with more workers and was very close to finding himself in a great spot. And then we have to go back to the beginning of the game. That did not quite work out for ShoWTimE. I refuse to believe that if he opens up Triple Oracle one more time, he's not going to kill at least a couple of drones. Like, that always happens, even against Serral. No matter how good you are as a Zerg, it should almost be inevitable. Maybe ShoWTimE feeling a bit of pressure, perhaps, where he's like, man, this is such a good run. Final day, best of 7 against Serral. Because there were definitely 1 or 2 moments where I feel a ShoWTimE that's feeling it would have committed with the Oracles and would have picked off a drone or 2. But I think maybe some fear of losing the Oracles early on, and maybe we got to shake off the nerves a little bit here.
Yeah, and sometimes it just comes down to getting into your rhythm. You know, I mean, we saw it yesterday for all of Serral's Raynor's games. He didn't win a single game until he was down 0-2 in a series, which is, first of all, you know, very impressive. He was able to claw himself back. But second of all, it's kind of hilarious when we think of that, of how good Raynor is. We're like, well, he's not supposed to go down 0-2, even to players of the caliber of, you know, Maru and Serral and, yeah, all the opponents that he ends up facing. I don't think ShoWTimE has that same kind of situation where he really turns it on when his back's against the wall. But maybe in a best of 7, you have a little bit more leeway to warm up and to get rolling. So by no means is this going to be an absolute indication of the rest of the series. Because like you said, I think just a very few small adjustments and we're looking at a completely different game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that got very close towards the end for a couple of those key units and a few of the static defenses barely going down. And Serral just ever so slightly having the right amount of units to actually end it. If ShoWTimE does have a better early game, if ShoWTimE does find some economic damage, there's a good chance he just holds there. And could have been him with the 1-0 lead, because I have a hard time believing that Serral is just going to play Hydra Ling Bane 4, 5, or 6 games in a row. ShoWTimE is very good against that stuff. Even when we think back of peak ShoWTimE in 2016, 2017, where he had these great battles with Elaser non-stop back then, and obviously Nurcho as well, who was still a top-tier European Zerg. That's the style that ShoWTimE was looking phenomenal against.
Yeah, absolutely. He's extremely good in the late game, but the late game isn't that mid-game aggression with all these fast units of the Zerg. They're just pouring after you, the Horde, the Swarm, keeping at you. And yeah, we'll have to see if he can make a couple of those small adjustments as we head on in to game number 2. It's going to be Moondance. It's going to be the man in purple from NC Sports. Give it up for Serral.
Whoa.
Yay.
I'll be the rainer for you. In the bottom right side of Moondance, we're looking at the main base of our German Protoss, who played very cautious in Game 1. Is he going to spice things up a little bit here in Game 2, or will it be more of the same? They call him Die Mauer. This is ShoWTimE.
And I do feel like he's been playing with a little bit more fire in this tournament overall. And I really hope we can see that come out here, because you know, you don't accidentally stumble your way into the top 3 of this tournament.
I have dreams of doing that, but they literally stay with dreams, Statfest. So you're spot on there.
Mine are a lot closer to nightmares. I wake up and I'm on the NA ladder and I queue up, it's Brazil, and then
I recently had a very vivid dream where I played Beyond in an upper bracket final.
Oh, wow.
And then I won, and everyone was like, how did it go? I was like, of course I won. I was like, come on. And then I woke up and I'm like, Kevin, you're a pleb. Like, Bjorn is like, apologize for having that dream. I was like, I'm sorry, Bjorn.
Some Idra energy right there. Apologize for playing that race. Oh, that's good stuff. That's do you dream about StarCraft a lot? Is that?
It depends a little bit on how many hours a week. Like, for instance, when I have like 5 or 6 days in a row non-stop casting or non-stop playing, then I do start dreaming about StarCraft. But if I spend a lot of time on some different stuff, then it's a little bit less. But when it comes to events like this, not too much. No.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I find it's when I'm playing, and I haven't been able to do this for a while, but I'm looking forward to it in the future. When you play 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and you're really thinking about it just constantly, that's when it really pervades into your subconscious and you start having these cool dreams. And I think back in the day,
because like you lay in bed and you think about some of the games that happened and you think about what you could have done different. But the pro players will still have that too, 100%. Like,
absolutely.
Especially if you go to a tournament day like this. Obviously there's nerves getting ready for it. But even like yesterday, you know, ShoWTimE played his games, obviously happy with the way that it went, knew that he was done. So for the rest of the day, you think about what happened and you think about what could possibly happen tomorrow. So the moment that these guys go to bed, Serral's probably pretty good in like not thinking about that kind of stuff too much. But I think almost every other human on this planet will already be, you know, in their mind thinking like, on this map I want to do this, and if I see X I need to do Y, and you kind of start thinking about it, and then it's very logical that you actually end up dreaming about something StarCraft 2 related.
Oh, absolutely. All right, we've filled enough time. Now stuff is happening in the game. We've got ourselves with the double chrono boost here on the first 2 adepts. Hearthstone loves to call this enlightened Protoss, which is to say if you're going to hatch block at the natural, do something with it. Actually try and take advantage of the fact that there's no creep at that natural expansion. He's going to try and go for that. We will have these adepts sneaking on in. ShoWTimE in general doesn't commit too much with them. Let's see if he switches things up in this series. Well, he's going to have to, actually. The adepts will shade into the main base. Serral, lane speed not quite done, but he's still on top of this very nicely so far.
Okay, with 3, I think we can live with 3, actually. That's quite good.
Yeah.
I was kind of worried that
Thought
we
it was
were
gonna
only
be 2.
going to get a single one at first, and I was like, that'd be really painful. And I was like, if you get 2, it's not exactly what the sweet baby dreams are made of, but we can kind of work with it. But I think killing 3 drones is quite reasonable, especially this early into the game. Oracle is a bit out of position. ShoWTimE obviously does not want to deal with any Zerglings running around in his natural or main base at this point. But hey, it's all ready, you know? You get 3 drone kills in a 4-minute game. In the previous game, I actually don't think that ShoWTimE killed a single worker. Other than maybe that the drone that got that hatchery.
Yeah, I don't think he did at all, actually. We're going to take a look at the defense of Serral right here. It was a solid defense, because whenever those adepts get into the main base, it can be tricky. We saw how wiggly and slippery they were. ShoWTimE just barely getting that last shot there. And if it wasn't such a clean defense from Serral, could have been so much worse. And now it actually, there we go, already the Oracle's more successful than they were in the entire game, pretty much, of game number 1. So you talked about asking for those adjustments. ShoWTimE's already delivering.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm just bringing a little bit of aggression early on with the adepts. It's a tiny map, and 2 adepts can actually do an insane amount of work. Now, against Serral, that's obviously not something that you can truly count on, but just getting a couple properly slows down the Zerg. Of course, it was a bit of an investment for ShoWTimE as well, but I don't hate it. Just, you know, find some success, find a little bit of momentum for yourself, and let's see if the triple Oracle can be a little more successful than it was in the previous game. Queen's out of position. Here you go. Mr. Mauer is going to try. The micro is, well, good on both sides.
Yeah, Well done. Nice deflection here from Serral. Something we didn't mention earlier, by the way, and something we're going to mention in a moment, is that Serral actually committed to a few more lings than normal for that defense. So he tried to go for the counterattack. So it's even more drone damage in theory. Oh, Serral? Oh, wow. A rare... Well, I mean, I guess both of them kind of made a small positional mistake right there, but Serral could have punished it, and he saw it with the Overlord, so... Serral a little bit missing some opportunities there.
So I think off trip, 3 Queens would have a very tough time though against those 3 Oracles. Maybe you can gun down the low HP one.
I think you can gun down the low HP one first, yeah.
But you're definitely going to end up losing a Queen as well. But that's of course
I'll take a Queen for an Oracle every day.
Yep.
Twice on Sundays.
Yeah, but I don't think ShoWTimE would have committed to it.
No.
Unless he's convinced that the micro will be perfect and he can save his Oracles at 5 HP. But he seems to be playing rather cautious again with the Oracles, and that's obviously something you'd love to see from high-level players. On the other hand, against Serral, it's also important to take a little risk here and there and just try to get fortunate and look for these openings non-stop. And if his Queens are off creep, maybe that's an opportunity for you to punish it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. It's the kind of thing where you sometimes look for. Nice warping right there from ShoWTimE. Does lose 1 probe on the transfer, but saves the second one. Well done. And yeah, something I was alluding to. We've got double forge right out the gate from ShoWTimE. Very cool stuff. Normally, we're used to seeing the +1 attack, and then if you want to go for this hero style, you add on the second forge from there, you go for 2-1 upgrades, then 3-2. So we're going to have these units of ShoWTimE being a bit burlier, a bit beefier than normal. And once again, Serral going for some probe pickoffs. Oof, yeah, no shield battery to natural is a bit of a problem. 3 probes going down is pretty significant.
He never does that, and I actually kind of find it fascinating. Like, I know every unit counts and you don't want to randomly build static defenses, but I think in this phase of the game, the 100 minerals are absolutely not going to kill you. They're going to make your life a little bit easier. And it's not like we don't have any money, right? We've got 68 probes, we've got 700 minerals. I feel like 1 battery to help up either an Adept or a Sentry to keep those lings at bay really would. It always gives you those extra 10 or 15 seconds to get ready, because now you need to take this so much more serious because you still don't have a battery.
No, you do not, but at the same time, wow, that kind of ends up being a little bit of a bait right there. I don't think the lings commit in, maybe. Yeah, wow.
And you think like he does it on purpose? He's like, sir, I've got no battery, keep on attacking me, and then he keeps on picking everything off?
I mean, I wonder. I hope he puts the battery now, because at this point he is moving out with the Stalkers, but maybe there, I'm wondering.
Ooh, that Evolution Chamber, by the way, that could be a target, because +2 melee is a very important upgrade. But Serral is going to Baning Buzz. He says, you don't have a battery, well, mate, I am going to punish that. So far, the crisis management is excellent. That Baneling could have had a phenomenal connection. At the same time, we have Link surrounding the 5th base of ShoWTimE, and this is a very important one, because this is where he found a lot of success against Lambo, even if he ended up losing this map in the end. But having that spot, being so close to the Zerg, allows him to kind of just put the pressure on non-stop. Now, losing this expand is definitely going to slow him down. Not many workers going down. I do think ShoWTimE's crisis management in those things has been phenomenal in this series so far, but he doesn't really get a whole lot going himself.
No, he doesn't, unfortunately. We have the army getting forced back and a recall being forced out. Now, it was cute because I was like, oh, maybe it's a bait, but Serral got in there before that shield battery that he did build could finish. So ShoWTimE getting caught on that little timing. Oh, I love this move from Serral. So great with the creep drop. It's not something we see enough, but ShoWTimE, you mentioned kind of attacking from this position of strength. He's got to start clearing out some creep before he can actually get up that ramp and really start maneuvering around between the 4th and 5th bases of Serral.
Well, Serral knows that a lot of the static defenses are not done yet, so he just goes for it. The low stocks being warped in. There are no stasis traps available. Little bit of energy. We are going to bring in the reinforcements. A couple of extra stalkers show up. Banelings alone are definitely not going to do it, but I think if Serral just gets another cancel, which he already did, picks off a couple of stalkers, maybe a couple of these +2 Banes can make it into the mineral lines. Nope, all of them get picked off. It's a great hold, but ShoWTimE does not get his hands on that very important base that he wants to get in the center of the map.
Yeah, and it goes back to that cancel he suffered earlier. Makes things difficult already, and now things are getting even more difficult. Securing that 5th base, it's feeling like a pipe dream at this point for ShoWTimE. It's going to be so difficult to make happen. Serral, he is...
maxing out in like the blink of an eye. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. He is on point right now. We are going to see these Lynx trying to get into the natural once again, but that shield battery, well, it's ready to go. Serral just keeping the pressure on wherever he can. And he is going to try and bulldog his way up the ramp. 2-2 Stalkers, are they going to be enough? This is so much Zerg. Lings, Banes flooding on forward. Battery overcharge is popped. And for the moment, the line is holding, but the Hydras are closing in. The Lings and Banes, they're trying to get into the mineral line. Those juicy probes. Oh, they're all stacked up on the gas. 14 probes go down. And that is looking like it is all she wrote potentially here for ShoWTimE. He plummets below 100 supply.
I mean, that was a phenomenal battery overcharge. That definitely put in a lot of work, but it is not going to be enough. Serral, the great Jonas Zotala, takes the 2-0 lead in the upper bracket finals. This is one of those tournaments that he has never won. And he often says, like, oh, I don't really think about that. I just kind of want to win everything. But I'm sure potentially winning a TSL would mean a little extra, obviously, with the big reputation that TeamLiquid has and all the great stuff that they have done for StarCraft 2 over the last 11 or 12 years. Sure, he'd want it. He's not there yet. He has to win this series and then obviously has to do it all over again later today. But he's looking mighty fine. And for ShoWTimE, this has got to be a kind of a frustrating game because he was probably quite happy with how a lot of things were going in this game until this happened. As we're taking a look at the first-person view of ShoWTimE, the management, the crisis here is great because he only ended up losing 5 probes, but he loses his momentum, he loses a lot of mining time, and most importantly, he loses that key base in the center of the map. It's a great play by Serral, but if ShoWTimE would have just had that battery a little bit quicker, that Stalker would not have died.
No, Stalker would not have died. He doesn't need to recall at all, and he holds the 5th base easily.
And
no chance it goes down. Yeah, oh, yeah.
We are still casting at that point right now, StatFast.
Yeah.
We'd be getting hyped.
It's so funny because both of these games can be boiled down to very small little things that have made a huge difference. And in both cases, I feel like it was a shield battery that was at the crux of it. In game 1, it was, you know, the lack of a battery overcharge. In game 2, it was just the lack of a battery in general.
The battery overcharge with all the Stalkers, by the way, was insane. I was like, Serral, I don't really care how far ahead we are. Sometimes you just don't kill a unit, but it seems like Yona is never running out of units, and it was like wave after wave of extra bailing showing up, and eventually they managed to slip through the cracks. It's been good so far. Let's see if it will stay good for this man in the top right side of Waterfall. We're looking at the main base of the man that has won pretty much everything that he could dream of, but he has never won a TSL. Will this be his tournament? Up to 0, it is Serral.
And his opponent spawning down on the bottom left for big. It is Demauer ShoWTimE. Just a couple of tiny cracks in that wall, and Serral exploits it every time. This is so tough to go up against a player like Serral. He just doesn't allow for really any mistakes to be made, or he will punish the crap out of them.
I think that's very well said. Serral is incredibly good at punishing any little slip-up you may have. And I'm thinking, right, like, did we have to recall? Yes, of course we do, because otherwise those Lings, they're going to rip through 25 probes. But maybe if you have like a few more units in that center base, maybe he would have been able to A, handle the run by, and B, keep that 5th base alive. But Blink Stalkers are beautiful units if you look at them and you actually control them properly and you kind of blink them back one by one. When there are 2 important things happening, it is very, very difficult. No matter how good you are, even like Parting in his glory days would struggle with having perfect micro, because you can only literally look at one spot, right? So it's very difficult to try to deal with a Ling Bane run by into your main and natural, and at the same time micro an army in the center of the map, right? That's probably not possible.
Yeah, and something theoretically that he could have done. Let's suppose that my theory that it was a bait to try and get the Lings in there is correct. I don't know if it was, if he just was, you know.
I think this is a tight build order, right?
Yeah,
the pros are like, it's funny because, you know, sometimes when we play and, you know, we all spend a lot of time in StarCraft, they're like, why are you making that Zettel? It's like, I don't know, man, I felt like making
why
Zettel.
not?
He's like, but that's terrible. And even on a 4-base scenario there, a lot of pros will be like, no, it's too early to build a shield battery there. But if you don't look at the amount of money that they're floating, and it's like, actually you could have absolutely afforded battery there. Like on 20 probes, of course, you cannot randomly build batteries. 30 probes, I think the same. But once we go above 60, I think to make life a little bit easier on yourself, just build that battery.
Yeah, but let's say that it was a bait or whatever, or even just a tight build order. As it gets discovered that he doesn't have a battery and he builds it, in theory, maybe he could warp in 1 sentry there just to bridge that gap. Obviously, like you said, build orders are extremely tight, but if he, that's one small difference that could have been made. Let's talk about this game, though. Take it away.
Because we have a robo going down, a very quick robo in the main base of ShoWTimE. Waterfall is one of the smallest maps we currently have in our map pool. And Serral had one happy little Zergling trying to get a sneak peek into the main base, but ShoWTimE denied that scout. This is kind of surprising. We are, I guess, looking indeed at a Robo Bay. We're going to get some more Prism speed and should be disrupted drops then, I guess, right?
Yeah, and ShoWTimE, he's mixing it up here. He is going for different stuff, stuff that we're not used to seeing from him. We saw it a little bit yesterday with the Charge Lot Archon play on Tropical Sacrifice. We're seeing it now with the Robotics Bay. I love that he is mixing things up. A lot of players, they have the mechanics, but they're not necessarily tournament players in terms of how they tweak things. We were talking about it a little bit yesterday. TY, one of the worst ladder players, there is, because he just messed around. He just had fun. But one of the best ever tournament players, because his builds were so well thought out, and they took advantage of little things, little ways to cut corners, and ways to make yourself unpredictable. He was so good at that, and now we're seeing ShoWTimE mixing that in a little bit. I'm so happy to see it. I hope it works out. It's going to be a little tough, but Waterfall is a short map. Maybe he turns this into a very aggressive move.
Serral is maybe misreading this a tiny bit, right? Because he's getting a very early Roach Warren, and he hasn't really seen a whole lot yet, but he might be thinking of like, oh, this is going to be a bunch of adepts with Resonating Glaives. Could be adepts into a Dark Shrine. We know that's not the case. Now, sometimes you can actually just build a speedy Prism and then just kind of not do anything with Disruptors, but just go for some nice Adept play. This is really cool, man. Like, we have Spore Crawlers going down as well. Serral is absolutely reading this at this point as, all right, you're going DTs then, right? Like, if it's not Glaive Adept, it must be DTs. We know that's not the case. This is a really cool little mind game for ShoWTimE, and yeah, if all those Spore Crawlers finish up, it's nice, I guess, to have a Spore here and there, but technically this is what ShoWTimE is hoping to accomplish. And it's working so far. Now we've got the follow-up with 5 extra gateways going down and the Twilight Council.
Yeah, and this is brilliant. A great mind game coming in from ShoWTimE here. Like you said, if it's not one, it's almost always going to be the other. That's how Serral read it. This is not really a mistake from Serral so much as a forced error from ShoWTimE, forcing Serral to get the misread. Very well done. And now we're going to be seeing a big Blink Stalker Disruptor all in. We're seeing something a little bit interesting with this, additional Disruptors. Usually they stop at 2, but I like that he's adding on more. They just gain so much value. Serral will initially push this away, but ShoWTimE, he's going to be sharking around with this. Ooh, those queens. Oh, he gets it. Nice job.
Yeah, it gets 1, but I think ideally we hope for a little more than 1 queen with 2 Novas. But it's Serral, of course. Yeah, but there's a couple of Roaches there, and as long as Roach speed is not done, that's where the Disruptors absolutely have a lot of potential. We're looking at a few more clumped up Roaches. ShoWTimE is thinking, shall I fire? He doesn't want to go too early. I don't think he's necessarily too happy with selling for 1 queen, 2 Novas. Because don't forget that he's kind of on the clock. This time around we get a couple of links, but that's kind of it. Still just 2 bases for our German Protoss. I mean, it's lame to call everything an all-in, but let's just say this is very, very, very committed. And ShoWTimE definitely needs to find a lot of damage. Just some great trades, and ideally takes out a base, so basically win the game.
Pretty much, yeah. You've got to get so much done with this. We're seeing him being so active with these Disruptors. Something else that happened with that first drop where he didn't even fire the shots initially was he forced Serral to pull the drones. Just a little bit of lost mining time. That's a few less units for Serral. Does ShoWTimE have enough to break through here? Blink not quite done. He's got to wait it out just a little longer. Serral, he wants to prevent ShoWTimE from getting up this ramp, but the Disruptors are going to force the issue. Yep,
it really is all about the Disruptors, not just what they connect with, but also forcing the army to move away each and every single time, and that will allow ShoWTimE to bring his Stalkers further forward. But at the same time, Serral says, all right, I don't have Novas, but I've got a couple of Ravages in the mix that can drop these corrosive balls, and that makes it a little bit harder for ShoWTimE to move in. A few more Disruptor takes a little bit of damage. ShoWTimE needs to be so damn careful with these Disruptors, because that truly is his lifeline in this game.
It certainly is extremely well done so far from Serral. We are going to be seeing, a big disruptor shot right there. We've got a flank coming on in as ShoWTimE commits up the ramp. Serral dodges the disruptor shot, sends in the lings. The flank is in full effect. A big disruptor shot on the back end, but is it too much? Almost all the disruptors go down. More stalkers are going to warp in.
We gotta go, ShoWTimE.
We
absolutely have to go. We are a base down. We are 12 workers behind. And I know it's hard, but I think we're just going to have to stand there and kind of micro-stalk us back one by one, because every second that goes by right now is a bad one. We have lost 3 out of the 4 disruptors, and there is only so much that a single disruptor can accomplish. Yes, as this one gets picked off too. Good job there by Serral. That's risky, because imagine if you don't get it. But Serral probably never had any doubt that he was going to get it. There's so much creep for Yona to work with here as well. Stalkers being pushed all the way towards the bottom right side, and this could very well be it. GG gets called. And Serral, man, he just looks invincible. Takes the 3-0 lead in this best of 7. The man has no chill, Dave.
That is what I was thinking myself. I was thinking invincible. Exactly that. He is looking so good. He just looks ridiculous right there. The first 2 games, you're like, okay, he's the one attacking. He's forcing mistakes. It's putting the onus on ShoWTimE to defend. And there was just a couple tiny things that ShoWTimE needed to do differently. But in this game, that is a high-pressure build coming at you. He handled those disruptors so well. And the corrosive biles were money on that ramp, constantly buying time for Serral. The snipe even on that final disruptor. You mentioned, like, oh man, like it feels so bold to do this. I'm going to take it one step further and say Zergs never get that disruptor before it goes off. As a player who's experienced this way too many times, the number of times that I've killed that disruptor is equal to the number of times, well, it's equal to 0. Yeah, just I've never gotten that disruptor, and I think a lot of Zerg players would feel that. But Serral, he knew. He had that nice concave. He was ready. The Ravagers obviously adding that additional range. The burst was able to get it down. We're used to stimmed bio taking those out. Serral, though, he knew. He was comfy.
It's fun because basically the most important fight is obviously when Serral set up that little bit of a flank and he just went for it. But right before that fight took place, ShoWTimE landed his one absolute cash money Nova. And you kind of feel like, whoa, that's really good. And now if you just kind of blink forward or you get on top of it. But Serral, with everything that he had left, he takes kind of a messy fight, but he manages to pick off 3 out of the 4 disruptors. And then suddenly that push in that army is just so much less intimidating. Because then, yeah, you can absolutely make the dive on that one final disruptor, because there is not that second Nova to worry about or the third Nova to worry about. And ShoWTimE definitely looked a little disappointed after that one. He's not totally down and out yet, but he's probably feeling a little, I wouldn't say hopeless, but probably kind of just powerless. Where it's like, damn it, this is one of these days where that Finnish boy is just untouchable. It's starting to look like it, but it ain't over yet. In the top right side of Stargazers, a lot of people call this the absolute best Protoss map in this map pool for this matchup, that is. We're looking at the main base of the best to ever do it, the great Yona Sotala Serral.
And his opponent, he's on the ropes. He's down 0-3. Can he channel that Rainer energy? Give it up for Biggs ShoWTimE. He needs your energy. Send it to him.
If ShoWTimE would drop down to that lower bracket, he is going to have a rematch with Maru. Maru is the reason that ShoWTimE rather, is the reason that Maru was in the lower bracket, starting this finals weekend here in Utrecht, the Netherlands. I think Maru is out for revenge. Do you think he cares? I think deep down inside he cares.
I think he might look a little nonchalant, but I think he is going to be bloodthirsty. I think we're going to see the most focused Maru we can see, because everyone coming into this tournament, they looked at it. Serral, of course, didn't attend at DreamHack Valencia, so kind of messed with the seedings a little bit going into things. So we ended up with Serral and Rainer on the same side of the bracket, and just the way the other seedings went, you have 2 top-tier players in the top, and then a lot of other players that were quite good that we would say, like, oh, we expect to see them in the top 6 or the top 12 or whatever. They also ended up on the top side of the bracket a little bit more frequently. And so it ended up with this bracket that looked, a lot of people would say, free for Maru. They were like, yeah, we're just going to see Maru in the grand finals or Maru in the winners finals. No questions asked. And then ShoWTimE steps out of the smoke and just absolutely smacks him down. An epic game on Moondance. I think it was 37 minutes or something.
Yeah, that was a long one.
It was a great performance from both players, but ShoWTimE edged it out and took the 2-1. This is so important right now for ShoWTimE to at least take a map, I think, to get some momentum.
Exactly, because this is not the end of his day. Like, obviously, it's always important to take a map, and if he doesn't win this map, he's falling, and the best of 7 is over. But definitely with you when you have to play another best of 7 right after this, actually, because obviously the loser, there's only one potential game that we can play in this tournament, and that's Maru versus the loser of this series. Yeah, you don't want to go 0-4, because then if you also lose the first game in the next series, these thoughts are starting to creep into your head. It's like, am I going to go 0-8 today? Like, please don't go 0-8. You want to get that monkey off your back and at least just play a solid game, get a point on the board, maybe even 2. And ShoWTimE was very close, make no mistake. Those first 2 games, like the first game, it was unfortunate that he didn't do any economic damage, but the fights itself, they were actually quite close, and ShoWTimE was pretty close to holding, and Serral was very committed. And the second game, I think, kind of went the same way. If it wasn't for that little Ling run by, things were looking quite alright for ShoWTimE. He was playing fine. So, you know, it's not been as bad as the score suggests, but obviously nobody likes to be down 0-3, as we have a Phoenix opening, and that Phoenix is gonna hunt down this Speedy Overlord.
It certainly is. This is a very interesting setup because I feel like this Speed Overlord is actually an adjustment to what ShoWTimE did in game number 3. I mentioned that ShoWTimE, he's stock standard. He always has been. That's been his go-to. But he mixed things up a little bit in that previous game, and it did catch Serral off guard. It forced the spores, it forced him to not drone for a while. He built that early Roach Horn. There was a lot of indirect damage that was caused by it, despite the fact that, you know, he didn't get that much behind it. And he goes for that Overlord speed. As a Phoenix enjoyer yourself, I know he's going Oracle behind. Actually, okay, no, it's going to get deflected initially. As a Phoenix enjoyer yourself, what do you think about this situation? Is it something you encounter ever?
No, I mean, I don't make this many oracles, mate, but I've obviously seen it, right? Many games that we have casted. Sometimes it's just nice to have one Phoenix out on the map, deny a bit of vision. And we have also seen Serral drop the occasional Nidus on this map, even earlier in this tournament against Reyna's Protoss. So I think ShoWTimE wants to make sure that there's nothing really weird happening. Because we haven't seen too many crazy, cheesy builds from Serral. Like, for instance, that first game, he was definitely very committed over pretty weak economy, pure Hydra Link Bane, and that was pedal to the metal, and if he doesn't win right there and then, he'd be in trouble. But we haven't seen like the wild cheeses, like the Queens, the Lings, the Niduses going up. And I feel like if there was one map where Serral maybe thinks, let's go ahead and get creative and try out a random build, because I don't want to deal with turtly Protoss players on Stargazers. Yeah, it would definitely be this map.
Yeah, I got to agree with that for sure. Oh, nice denial on the 4th base of Serral. Well done by ShoWTimE there. He is supply blocked here at 70. Oh, he's going to get unblocked though as that Nexus finishes up. No problem.
This Sport Runner not done yet.
Okay.
Queen's way out of position. Sexy movement here by ShoWTimE. It's 5 drones. Actually all very good, as long as we don't lose the Oracle, and he doesn't.
Yeah, very nicely done right there. First, I was just going to, nice. He gets a couple drones, denies the 4th base, but that's actually kind of big. Now, I do want to point out the fact that that Overlord speed was completed. That's a pretty big deal for Serral, because he could have been worried about something crazy, like, let's say, a double Stargate play or something very weird, some kind of, you just go mass gateway or something crazy, but he's able to deny the scout.
Serral goes for the Spire himself, +1 melee and a Spire.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Some of the Korean Zergs love to do this, even against the hero style with that mass +1 Blink Stalker. Solar is a player specifically that is a big fan of playing Mutaling against that style. And it's, I mean, I gotta tell you, it's fun and it puts a lot of pressure on the Protoss. And this, you might be thinking to yourself, like, Serral's taking his foot off the gas. He's already up 3-0. No, this is when your opponent is at their most vulnerable mentally. So if you can keep the aggression on them, that is going to make such a huge difference. You're forcing them to respond to you and to deal with what you're doing. And we can see another probe getting picked off right there. Another scout comes in from Serral. He is keeping tabs on everything, and he is playing such a phenomenal game of StarCraft today.
Yeah, but obviously don't forget that this is just a difficult map for Zerg as well, right? So maybe Serral feels like, if I'm just going to sit back and build roaches, or if I have to go Hydra Link Bane again on this map, I actually don't think it's going to be all that successful. Why not switch it up? Why not try to do something different? And maybe I can keep keep ShoWTimE in the dark as one of these oracles gets picked off, and ShoWTimE has still absolutely no idea. There are 13 Mutalisks on the way right now. Wouldn't be surprised to see +1 flyers starting up immediately, and that is exactly what happens. And this is the kind of stuff you need to get ready for. We have a couple of cannons going up, but like there doesn't need to be this much emphasis right now on Storm. Storm is something you get against Lings and Banelings and Hydras, but if you know you're going up against 16 Mutalisks, what you ideally want to do is just get a couple of Stalkers and obviously maybe increase the Phoenix count a little bit. We only have a single Phoenix.
Oh, he's gonna see the
ShoWTimE is about to find out, but it's late, man. It's really, really late, Statfest.
It is so late, and we got Lings coming in from multiple angles as well. Very nicely done here from Serral. He is setting up for a scary attack. Storm is going to complete for this, but we're going to see the bust down at the natural just before the shield battery completes. The Lings will flood on in. The Mutas are going to turn around and fight the Stalkers with the Ling support. This is so devastating for ShoWTimE already.
Yes. I mean, as long as he doesn't completely fall apart, that one cannon is gonna get cancelled. Okay, Damuda is making it into the pocket expand. Like, losing 10 probes or so was totally acceptable, but now we've already lost 24. And now the High Templars are a little bit exposed as well. It is raining storms, though. That's a decent amount of Mutalisks going down. That one Phoenix is the Phoenix with the golden gun. One shot, one kill. 24 probes going down, but ShoWTimE always so quick in rebuilding them. It's not over yet, Statfest. Like, he's only 12 workers behind, and that Phoenix count is increasing. And it's not like Serral's got an army that's going to scale incredibly well into the late game.
No, he certainly does not, but he has got the coolest game plan. We are going to see a little bit of a Dr. Dario special coming in right here. We're going to have a 40 Ling drop coming in, and this is going to be supported by the Mutas. You're used to those minerals being up, keeping you safe in the pocket base, but when these Lings drop in, that is going to be so scary to deal with. It's already a ShoWTimE who is taking it on the chin, who's been struggling to defend, and Serral is now winding up for a massive haymaker. The Archons are in position, which is very handy, but he's going to need to be so quick on pulling those back. The shield battery could be huge on that base.
Yeah, that battery has a crazy amount of potential. There is a cannon as well. The Mutas are going to keep the Phoenixes in the main army busy. Here comes that Ling drop, and I think with a cannon, battery, and 2 Archons, I kind of think it's okay. Serral obviously knows that the battery there is very problematic, but doesn't seem like there is a crazy amount of Lings remaining. The Archons and Zealots have +2. Mutas are not finding all that much success. ShoWTimE needs to make damn sure he doesn't lose all the Phoenixes immediately. But this seems to be another pretty successful hold. Serral wouldn't be Serral if he's not already transitioning, where he's like, all right, I cannot win the game anymore with just Lings, Mutas, and yeah, that's basically all that he was working with. So let's go up to Hive. He's now firing up 17 Roaches, but he of course doesn't have any Roach upgrades.
No, he does not, and I mean, Roaches kind of suck on a maxed out scenario. This is... God, that was such a good hold from ShoWTimE. He set himself up so well. I don't think he anticipated the Ling drop, but of course those Archons were positioned to deal with the Mutas. That shield battery, that defense, Demauer really showing up here in this game. As you said, it is going to transition out of this, but I am just so incredibly impressed that ShoWTimE was able to hold there and hold so well. Because I think the number of Protoss players that died to that, or the number of Protoss players that survive as well as ShoWTimE did, it's a very small number.
Especially the first time where the Lings and the Mutas getting on top of the probes in the pocket expand. You look at 25 works going down, you're like, oh no, this is really bad, right? And ShoWTimE already immediately 4 probes, 5 probes at a time. He's just never stopping producing those workers. So even when he loses 25, that actually often takes like 45 seconds. He's already rebuilt 10 and the next 5 are on the way. And that is definitely what allows him to stay in these games, as that Baneling drop gets denied. The Lings kind of get shut down in the bottom left side. The one thing though that would be nice for ShoWTimE is to have a good idea of what he's going up against on the other side of the map. And Serral is now truly donating his final 5 or 6 Mutas. He's pointed it out. The Great Aspire is more than halfway done. I mean, if ShoWTimE was going to win any game, this kind of has to be the game, right, Statfest?
Yeah, it certainly does. I will say that this is the kind of game where maybe you can start building some confidence, but you definitely still want to win right here. And he is going to be trying to get in here. I don't know if he's scouted the Greater Spire, but he is going to be hitting before those Broodlords start up. Big storms to start things off. The creep spread, though, is very daunting. You really don't want to push into this much creep. Even into Hydraling Bane, or Ravagerling Bane, it's very uncomfortable. Nice, quick response, but the probes are still going to get bottled up, and 10 probes will go down. Nice little counterattack.
Yep. Pretty insane that even there we get 10 workers.
Yeah.
Well, that ShoWTimE was indeed reacting very quickly to it. Had a cannon, had a battery, pulled the probes, still lost 10. But it's all good. That is not going to cripple ShoWTimE. He's still working with 72 workers. He is starting to be on cleaning duty here and just clean up all that creep in the center of Stargazers. And now he's probably thinking like, I'm gonna pretty sexy Protoss army. He's very close to a couple of big upgrades finishing up, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at +2 shields, fantastic for the Archons, and +3 attack. That is going to be phenomenal for the Stalkers. We see a couple of Broodlords, and now it's obviously going to be hard for ShoWTimE to make the correct decisions. Like, do I keep going, yes or no? How many do you have? But I think ShoWTimE also knows that Serral really has spent a lot of money on all these mutas, so he is going to try, and I really don't hate the idea of staying here. Like, going all the way back right now and dragging this game out forever, going into your own fleet beacon, extra Stargates. I'd say let's try. Try to win, and if it doesn't work, then we can always play that game.
Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty strong timing for ShoWTimE. Even though the Broodlords are out, there's actually wasn't a lot on the ground right there. With the amount of storm that ShoWTimE had, I really think he could get something done, and at the very least, rotate around, maybe try and deny that pocket base. Oh, no unit in the wall. And these are about to be +3 cracklings.
He's maxed out. That's very annoying.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
the
Templars in the center of the map will all go down to just a couple of banelings from Serral. And where ShoWTimE had all the potential in the world to maybe just straight up win the game, suddenly things are starting to look a little bit more awkward. He has managed to sneak a couple of his own Stalkers into the pocket expand of Serral. And he has dropped that fleet beacon and those 2 extra Stargates. But it felt like it should have been game over. Like how Serral has somehow successfully transitioned into Hive and is now doing whatever he can to save that hatchery. The Stalkers with the final few shots do get that hatch. Most of the Phoenix is going to get picked off to that. This game has just gone bananas, and I don't know how Serral even makes a game out of this, because what he played, he was committed. You're supposed to be all in. You're supposed to be stuck there as a Zerg. And Serral apparently says, I'm never stuck, even with 0 Roach upgrades and 0 Roaches. I'll go Hive and Roaches at the same time, make 17 of them, and that will allow me to transition into Broodlords. It's pretty insane how he does it.
It really is. He just puts so much pressure on his opponent. We're going to see ShoWTimE trying to find some opening on the bottom side, but this is just hopeless. He is opening up for another attack on the pocket base, but he's going to be forced to recall here, and that means this army, at the very least, those Archons are dead. And I would say, well, I mean, ShoWTimE is on a lot of bases still. He's on 92 probes all of a sudden. I mean, we're not at that critical Broodlord count yet.
We definitely need an extra base though. This bottom left side base is
does
great,
get
because you can have 94 probes all day, every day. But
yeah.
I have a hard time believing that at this point he's got mineral patches and Vespian guys to have 94 probes on. We can see some very serious oversaturation already on this base, and that was even one of the bases he took later. As we do have a couple of great storms going down on these Roaches, and most of them do get picked off. Serral now even drops a Lurk and then a couple of Infestus on the way. I mean, what is this, a Burger King? He's having it his way, like he's just making a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you can have it all here. That was I mean, this game from Serral has been just nutty. I've been focusing on, what ShoWTimE's been doing well, but Serral has absolutely played out of his mind, not just in his entire series, but in this game as well, transitioning out, getting the job done. Oh, nice job right there from ShoWTimE. He does find that little Bane run by and is able to just make the Archon kind of man up and just soaks it on the chest and says, oh, that's it? You don't have water? Where are they?
Now the storm goes down. I mean, I feel like if ShoWTimE just fights here with a little bit of micro on the Stalkers, he should be able to win that skirmish. At the same time, we have the Stalkers again making it into the pocket expand. And I think what ShoWTimE is hoping for, and this may sound crazy, guys, but that is a mistake of Serral, where he's going to expose the Broodlords a little bit too much. Like, imagine if you have 7 or 8 extra Stalkers there, and the Broodlords are that far forward. That's where you can blink, and that's where you can snipe them almost immediately.
Yeah, and he does have +3 attack, +2 shields on his ground units. Those Blink Stalkers, they will take down Broodlords very quickly. Oh, the Archons do get surrounded here, getting a little bit too far forward. And I mean, he's trying to force the issue, but it's Serral, man. Good luck out multitasking Serral. He is the one who out multitasks you. He is the one who makes you work for it. Even now, he's scouting for that late game Stargate transition, and he sees it basically as the Stargates are done They're ready to produce. They haven't started yet. ShoWTimE is currently maxed out, but he's got no bank, so he can't really just throw away a bunch of supply and start building carriers. He needs to still collect more money, get up to that. And there it is. He is going to blink forward, but the fungal growth is going to come on in. The transfuse is going to keep those queens alive. And this is looking, well, this is going to be a successful way to throw away supply, but not in the way you want to. Excellent defensive fight here from Serral. ShoWTimE looking for it, doesn't find the opening.
Did he see the infestors before? I feel like that's kind of the first time he saw them, right? We have the lurker upgrades on the way now as well. The zealot count here doesn't really do a whole lot. It can maybe soak up a couple of shots. ShoWTimE is just going to send it again. He feels that Serral does not have enough to protect these Broodlords, and the lurkers were indeed not there. The lurkers don't have their feisty upgrades yet, but in the end they will burrow and get a couple of shots up. We are still landing fungals and the stalkers too, and it's just a messy, bloody battle here where both players have definitely lost a lot of units. Serral keeps a couple of his key units alive, and ShoWTimE is obviously doing great economically, especially after stabilizing on the bottom left side. It needs to be a little bit careful because that army of Serral is growing bigger, better, stronger, and obviously it's very, very well teched. And ShoWTimE's army is still very well upgraded, but very basic.
Yes, it is certainly quite basic. He is getting into the +2 ship weapons. We are going to see him blink forward once again onto the lurkers. The trap from Serral is sprung, but is it a trap? I mean, the observer saw it and he just went right into it. He actually did better there than I expected.
Serral just misses like 20 units on the ground, and like 20, 40 links there, or let's say 4 or 5 roaches to protect those lurkers from the zealots. I think then that would have been an amazing fight for Serral.
Well, something that's very interesting is that he actually has a huge bank. Well, he had a huge bank. It's still a pretty decent-sized bank. Yeah. It's plenty to max out once again. He had the larva. He did have the larva. I was keeping track of it that whole time.
He's just wondering right now what he should be building.
Exactly, yeah.
He's not blindly building units. He wants to keep a close eye on the army of ShoWTimE. If ShoWTimE shows up with more Archons, and that is absolutely what's happening, Serral says, then I want more Broodlords. If you go for something else, then maybe I'll go for something else as well. It's actually pretty cool. Maybe also worried about that SC2 transition. You know, Serral wasn't born last night. He saw those fleet beacons. He's probably kind of concerned about a bunch of carriers somewhere or the first few Tempests showing up. But yeah, as long as that's not the case, he can definitely make more Broodlords. It's pretty cool to see him not just spend his money blindly. Wants to make damn sure he's making the correct choice.
Yeah, it's actually incredibly intelligent play. Unfortunately, it means he can't punish that army at the time. But as you said, now he's got a bunch of Broodlords out against these Archons. He does lose the base, but he is going to drive this army back, and he's winning the cost efficiency war. Certainly, we saw it a little bit earlier right there. He's up 4,000. Now it has stretched, I believe, to 5,000 even. He is doing, well, he's doing what he needs to do. However, he doesn't want to let ShoWTimE get away with this gold base. So I think at the very least, you need to keep tabs on that. Oh, nice job. Gonna kill the observer here. 2 fungals will take it out, so of course he waits for the full duration. It pops at the end. We also saw the War Prism did get deflected there. I'd like to see, oh, there it is, the single Corruptor. Wow, really nice observer placement here out of ShoWTimE, but Serral, equally good observer kills right there.
That's 4 fungals though. Like obviously, if there's a big fight happens in the near future,
you got to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually could become somewhat of a perhaps reckless way to spend all your energy, but
yeah,
seems like we're gonna get away with it. ShoWTimE is for now just kind of going for some multitasking. We have a couple zealots in the main base, slicing up the Roach Warren. We had zealots in the bottom right side, and we still have stalkers. Well, we obviously need an observer here too, because all the drones are temporarily burrowed. Seems like these stalkers will fall. Eventually, ShoWTimE is going to have to get rid of a couple of probes, because he still has 98, and that sounds fantastic, but he doesn't have enough room to put those 98 probes. And you don't want to obviously take a game-deciding fight with 102 army supply, because Serral's army supply is already the 130. That's big. High Templars could get fungled here. Oh, that's 3 High Templars with a lot of energy going down, and even High Templar number 4 is in a bit of trouble. That one will barely live. ShoWTime's doing a good job and he's throwing away a lot of units.
Yeah, and he simply isn't getting the damage done that he's looking for. It's not that he can't afford it for now, but this is Stargazers. This is actually the worst map for him to be doing this on, unfortunately. And I think Serral he knows that, and he knows, like, even if you take that gold base, if you keep battering your way in with basic gateway units, I will eventually bleed you out. And finally, we are seeing those carriers being added on ShoWTimE. I think maybe he was waiting until Serral got a little bit lazy with his scouting. Or not even lazy, but less on point with it. And he's keeping him back this whole time. And Serral hasn't seen it just yet. We'll see if he is able to respond. But if, you know, if he pops out with 8, 9, 10 carriers all of a sudden, he can still turn this around.
Yeah, I mean, the carriers have +2 ship weapon or arrow upgrades already, and he's actually going for a +3. Even though the Stargate on their way, ShoWTimE has done a phenomenal job in hitting multiple bases at once. We're going to utilize recall one more time. We leave an Arc on the Knight Templar behind. At the same time, though, we're going to recall into all these lurkers. Serral does put some pressure on the gold base here. And this, of course, is one of the most important bases, because this is the one base that kind of belongs to no one, right? All the bases on the left belong to ShoWTimE. All the bases on the right belong to Serral. But this map has one key base. And obviously, ShoWTimE has already done a bit of mining of the gold. That's big. But he would ideally get his hands on all those resources.
He certainly would, but he is the one who actually does have a bit of a bank. Serral's actually broke. That bottom right base going down as much as it has is a huge impact. This burrowed Ling is actually going to see the carriers, and we've seen how Corruptor's being added on. More Queens. Serral, he's all of a sudden in panic mode. He has got so much army supply, but so little of it that deals effectively with carriers. Now, we got to have Neural Parasite, right? We got to have Neural Parasite. Yeah, yes, Neural Parasite is done. So the Burrow move infestors. Oh god, where's the detection? He needs those observers out front. There's one leading the charge right now. It's going to spot the infestors. He cannot afford to get jumped on. Does he have the High Templar that he needs to deal with this? He's only got 2.
One of the 2 observers actually getting picked off there. We do still have an Oracle too somewhere. That can obviously be very big. Revelation is pretty reliable in scenarios like this. The Oracle's actually not with the main army though, so we need to be careful. I mean, I actually thought that if ShoWTimE would have just gone for a fight there, it would have gone really well, because there was not enough anti-air. A couple of Queens do not stand a chance against 7 carriers with +3, and they even have +2 armor for good measures. And the Corruptors are also not incredibly well upgraded. Actually, there are 2, but there weren't too many of them. But the longer we wait, the more ready Serral will be. I saw 1 Viper being fired up, and with 2 or 3 Vipers, it just becomes so much more difficult for ShoWTimE to get a great fight.
It does, but he's going to deny another base from Serral. And I think he's recognized that Serral doesn't have the money. He is going to pop out with these interceptors. The infestors are not quite in position. They're not going to be able to get those fungal growths. We'll see the microbial shroud coming down to keep the Queens alive. And that will shove ShoWTimE back. But he's already killed the base, and that's actually enough. Nice pick off on the Oracle right there, but a good feedback coming in on the Viper. We are going to see another infestor getting feedback, but the fungal growth will take care of a lot of the ground army. And that's going to drive ShoWTimE back the rest of the way. I still think that actually went well for ShoWTimE because he keeps that base count of Serral low. And Serral, he actually can't afford yet to build enough Corruptors to fight this army straight up. He needs those Neural Parasites.
Yeah, or just a couple of Abducts, right? We need a few Vipers. I don't think the Viper died. We have a War Prism. Actually, the Viper did die, got feedback, and then got picked off later on. War Prism warps in a bunch of Zealots. ShoWTimE made this go for like a semi-base right here almost. Serral's army is still bigger than ShoWTimE's army. We're looking at 136 army supply for Serral. But ShoWTimE says, your army is slow. My army is still quite mobile. Some of it flies, and some of it can just be warped in everywhere. I still have plenty of Zealots to work with too. It's going to be almost impossible to pick up each and every single building though. Serral's got like 5 minutes to get ready for that, so
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's a decent idea if Serral would make a mistake and get reckless and be overly aggressive, but I don't think Serral's gonna make that mistake.
I actually love the decision to go Tempest right here. And the reasoning is because of what I kind of alluded to, and that's the fact that Serral can't come out and fight ShoWTimE. And what those Tempests do is they force the units to come forward. We do, of course, have those Vipers that you're talking about, but Serral's just been so gas-broke for so long that he really can't afford...
Yeah, we have 0 Vipers.
Actually, we have 0 Vipers, and now I love the Tempest even more. Even with a 10k losses difference right here, we're going to see these Tempests starting to go to work. It is 3-2-3 on the air. Seismic Destabilizer starts up. He sees that he didn't have the Fireball just yet.
I wouldn't do that right now, to be honest.
No, Serral cannot be moving out with these units,
I
I don't think.
That's sweet! Serral actually takes control of the Oracle.
Oh, and now he kills it!
Yep, drops the Revelation of the Iron Shutdown. He's like, nice ability, bro. Then he picks it off. But I was talking about the upgrade for the Tempest. I don't know, man. ShoWTimE has got very little gas. And I feel that that upgrade right now, it's going to be a lot more about, I think, the armies fighting rather than the Tempest shooting at buildings. There's only 3 Spore Crawlers, so I personally wouldn't spend my gas on it, but...
I think he probably thinks there's a lot more Spores right now. He's assuming he's depleted the gas bank, but maybe more minerals are on the field. But what he doesn't realize is how many Queens Serral has built, I think. We are going to see...
Templars.
Yeah, they're fine. They're covered right there. He does have to be, of course, very careful with them. This base is extremely crucial. Serral cannot afford to let ShoWTimE get this base up and running, but he also can't push into ShoWTimE defensively. This is looking so good for Demauer right now, I gotta say. Who do you favor in this situation, though?
I think it's very close. I think it comes down to execution. ShoWTimE definitely has the tools to get a great fight, but if Serral gets 1 or 2 Vipers or just has a couple of great Fungals, a couple of Neuroparasites, I mean, Serral's army is bigger, but ShoWTimE is obviously the one that's richer and technically has the better army at this point, but it really just comes down to execution. If we don't make any silly mistakes with the Tempest, I agree with you that ShoWTimE should be able to walk away with this game and at least make sure that this series goes on a little bit longer, as we do have a Fungal going down though and a couple of Neuroparasites as well. Is this the one chance for Serral to still make something out of this game?
No, I don't think it is. We're going to be seeing these neural parasites. They will get a couple of these carriers, but can he follow through on this? Another neural parasite. Man, that is a very long reach neural. Still, there are a few High Templar. That did go very well for Serral.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
But ShoWTimE, I think, still has the tools. And I think he actually, yeah, with that, oh, he doesn't catch the Infestors. I think that's what he was looking for with that Revelation. But the Tempests are going to be able to pick away at these Queens, and that's what they're looking for. He knows the Infestors are nearly out of energy. He doesn't know that there's only 4 Infestors left over. I think if he knew this, he would just shove through and run Serral over. Serral, once again, being forced to burrow those drones. So good. He's gotten so much value out of the burrow. Damn, those are some big banelings on the defense. So much value out of the burrow. I love that we're seeing this from Serral, but ShoWTimE is slowly grinding him down over time. The Broodlord count, it's getting picked away at. Another one goes down, and I feel like Serral is just running out of units.
Yep, Serral's definitely running out of units. He's been running out of resources for quite some time. He knew that ShoWTimE had the gold for a bit, but I think Serral's plan was eventually I'll get my hands on the gold, and then we have the same amount of resources, and I've been trading better, so I should be okay. But ShoWTimE is not allowing that to happen. I love the fact that we're still active with a Prism, warping in a couple of Zealots just to keep Serral busy, annoy Serral. That fight actually took place without any Vipers, right? Like, Serral thought he saw an opportunity there, and he landed a couple of Fungals. He landed a few Neuroparasites, but it wasn't quite enough to get that big victory that he was looking for. And now he can deny the base, and now ShoWTimE is going to have a lot more income again. And it seems kind of hopeless, but I think we have learned our lesson in the past. And we should never really count out Serral, so we won't. But even Serral needs resources, though, right? To be great? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you need money, and it's funny because like the army supply has been favoring Serral for so much, but look at exactly there we see the income advantage over time has been so significant, and now we're even seeing what I think is going to probably be the kill move right here, and that is the addition of Void Rays, the addition of Flux Veins. That mothership is going to be completing very shortly, which is just going to complicate the fight more and more for ShoWTimE. And even I actually really love this decision, throwing away the probes to make sure that he can really get a few more voids. And I think we are looking down the barrel of a potential just maybe a very one-sided fight as this shakes down. Like you said, we can never, ever count out Serral because he is the magician. He makes things that look impossible possible. But ShoWTimE, he knows what he has right now. He knows he is the one in the lead. As I say that, though, nice little move from Serral. He's like, oh, you throw away some probes? Here, let me help you throw away some more.
Yep, and now we're going to send the Skytos units over. High Templars, a little too far forward, -2. That's actually kind of a big deal. That's 300 gas down the drain, and that's still not something that even ShoWTimE is going to have a limited amounts of. You see, the ShoWTimE was probably quite worried about there being another trap somewhere there, right? He's like, yeah, there's no way, it's just the lurkers. And then you're worried about Vipers showing up and abducting a couple of your units, or Infestors landing a Fungal from the high ground. But ShoWTimE did not have to worry about any of that. But now we do have to worry about our little setup in the center. A couple of High Templars, one of them gets picked off, the other two are going to go down as well to a storm to the Roaches. All 3 of them, and the Pilot, and the static defenses. And even when Serral has very little stuff to work with, he's still finding great moves.
He's a damn wizard. That shouldn't have been possible. He picks off 5 High Templar with units that had no business being able to do that. So well done. And Serral says, nuh-uh, Steadfast, we're not done yet. I still have some fight left in me. Oh, and he's going to go for another High Templar right here. Is he targeting it? Battery. He sure is. The shield battery not in time.
Why would the battery heal the Zealot over the High Templar? What is wrong with that battery, Steadfast?
Oh, it is a discriminatory battery. It loves mineral units over gas units and just detestable, really. We are going to see ShoWTimE, though. He says, enough is enough. I'm going to make you come to me. I know that your army can't reposition easily. I'm going to pick off this base. I'm going to make you uncomfortable.
Oh, recall has been used.
Ooh.
So we are going to recall
he
on
wants
top
those
of all
lurkers.
these lurkers. The lurkers are going to try to run away. It seems like 2 of them will fall. The lurker number 3 takes a lot of damage. I'm actually worried for ShoWTimE, man. I know a while ago I liked it for ShoWTimE because it really did feel that Serral was broke as a joke and he didn't have any Vipers. Now actually we have 3 Vipers and his army just got better and better over time. 21 Corruptors. They are pretty strong Corruptors too. They still have the 2-2 upgrades. Serral just doesn't really have the money to get 3-3, but even 2-2 Corruptors are quite decent. And with 3 Vipers and those Infestors, the dream is very well alive for Serral.
Absolutely.
Well, man, the fighting spirit of this man too, right? He's up 3-0. He went for Mudalist. Like any Zerg will tell you, it's like if you make that many Mudas of that economy, you need to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't do that, the game is over. So I was like, no. I can make a bunch of Mudas, and I can also go Hive and make Roaches and Ravages. Then go up to Broodlords, eventually make my way to Lurkers, and yeah, we'll just play a 35-minute game. Like, it's supposed to be impossible. This game should have ended like 20 minutes ago. And Yona is showing us that if you believe that you don't have to quit early, and well, it's actually starting to look better than it's done in a very long time.
I think I favor Serral's position at this point even. Oh, and a nice abduct coming in, grabbing that Oracle. I don't even think it got a revelation there, which is pretty huge. And now the gold base goes down. ShoWTimE's got he's got no gas. He's got 6 probes. This is it. And he now suddenly feels like he's the one who has to get something done. I want to point out how important those High Templar pickoffs are. Normally in this army setup, the Broodlords are what deals with the High Templar. And the Lurkers are... They can be okay with it, okay at it, but it's hard to be the ones to deal with it, to pick them off. So the fact that he's been able to, with only 4 Broodlords and the Lurkers, just with kind of magic, out multitasking, out positioning his opponent, find those big pickoffs on so many of the High Templar, and really mean that ShoWTimE only has the High Templar left that he has on the field, is actually a huge pickoff. It's such a brilliant set-piece maneuver from Serral. And like I said, now I think I favor his position, and I haven't favored it in about, basically since those Lings were about to drop into the back base.
Yeah, the 40 Lings! All right.
Yeah.
Obviously, Serral dodged a couple of bullets. I think especially that first time ShoWTimE was really on the other side of the map with the +3 Archons, +3 Stalkers, a couple of Storms. All there was were a couple of Broodlords, man. And I really think if he would have gone pedal to the metal, he could have ended it, but... that's a long time ago. We'll see how this big fight is going to play out. Obviously, with a couple of great feedbacks, there is hope for ShoWTimE too. But the Vipers and Infestors are the true terrifying units here. We do land a Fungal. We land a couple of feedbacks on the Vipers. That's really big. The Fungals may be big, but now there is no Parasitic Bomb available. And without the Vipers, maybe there is hope here for Demour.
There certainly is. We've got the best Time Warp ever cast in a game of Legacy of the Void. It will expire. It's pretty inconsequential, but man, we never see it doing anything. It actually blottled up those Queens quite nicely. ShoWTimE was able to pick off a base that surprisingly does still have resources at it, and I think even has gas at it, which is pretty big.
I think both gases have a lot of gas, mate. There is 1,500 gas on the left one, and the right one has 1,900 gas. So there is still 3.4k gas to fight over.
Unfortunately for ShoWTimE, he doesn't have any minerals. He's got 2 probes and no minerals. And Serral, he's on 19 drones. He's done such a good job of retaining his drones from this point. Ooh, he's going to catch the Queens. Nice job from ShoWTimE. Ooh, but the fungal growth, you got to get out of here, ShoWTimE. I think, does he need to recall? No, there's no Vipers. And the Void Rays are actually going to push the Corruptors back. This still looks like a very good fight for ShoWTimE.
Yep, there aren't too many Corruptors. Another Storm lands in the middle of the Queens. I don't see any Shrouds anymore either. The Interceptor count is obviously starting to dwindle. But there are still a couple of Void Rays. That Mothership is tanky. The Lings come in to surround the High Templars, though. One Storm is nice. Does Serral have enough anti-air? It's starting to, well...
Oh, it's so close.
Yeah, he's got like no Corruptors. He's got 4 Corruptors, and this is where the Tempest can really shine. And that's why the feedbacks were so damn big on the Vipers in the previous fight. All the Vipers died. Do we have any detection left as we are burrowing the Infestors? I mean, Queens should not win against Captain Protoss units, right?
Well, I mean, those carriers, they're empty. They're dead weight. They
Yeah.
literally do nothing. It's the Tempest and the Void Rays, and even the Mothership could actually end up being an MVP. We saw those Infestors pop up. He wanted to cast a Microbial Shroud. He's out of energy. The Broodlords do nothing. The Corruptors are out in small numbers. I think ShoWTimE, after 37 minutes, is finally doing it here. Serral is on the back foot. He's being pushed back. A concave of Queens is coming in onto the Mama ship, but she is taking so much damage. We are going to see a huge fungal growth, but does it even matter?
I think it matters, man, because the carriers suck, and all that the Queens need to do is get in range of the Tempest, and they are starting to do it. One more fungal would be insane here. The Tempests are starting to lose a lot of HP. The kiting is great. This is a ridiculous fight. And it's like, oh, ShoWTimE, every unit is so important here for ShoWTimE, of course. Does he still have any detection? Yes, there is still one Oracle. The Queens are going for it one more time. This is one of the silliest endings to a 38-minute game that I've seen in a while, but the Tempest Micro is good. It looked like the Queens were in high enough numbers and in range to make the difference, but perhaps they were not. We have a transfuse going down. There are two Infestors.
Oh, that Oracle.
There are two Infestors, and that is really the only way. Yeah, I think the Queen count is just not high enough anymore. Then again, there are too many Void Rays, there aren't too many. We need some Fungals or Neuroparasite, anything, really. Transfuse is good.
Transfuse is very helpful right here, but it looks like he's out of energy now. The final Corruptor is going to fall. The Tempest are kiting back. That one Tempest on the top side. It is coming down to single number of units at this point. We have got Serral with laser focus right there. ShoWTimE, he is fighting his heart out. 38.5 minutes here on Stargazers, and neither player is giving an inch. The Queens at the bottom. We got Lane's counterattacking on the bottom side of the map. 0 probes for ShoWTimE. What a crazy game this is so far.
ShoWTimE still has 9 cannons. Obviously needs to make sure that he doesn't get eliminated by these Lurkers and Lynx, but with 9 cannons, he should be able to buy some time for himself.
What?
What's happening with the Queens, by the way? So the Queens, there's 3 of them, and we have 2 Infestors.
Oh, he sends one Void Ray back home. That's a good decision right there, but it does mean one less Void Ray in the fight. That is, well, that's a 1/6 of your fighting units right there actually out of the fight. He sends both Void Rays back home.
So it's 4 Tempests. That's what it is.
It is. I want to see
the Infestors, the Queens, and that one Corruptor can absolutely fight 4 Tempests.
Yeah, if you can Neural Parasite 2 of the Tempests and
that's an easy fight.
unburrow on top of the other 2 with those Queens. Oh, where are the Queens right now? We gotta see where those Queens.
Bottom right side, we have the Infestors as well. They're gathering up energy, and one Corruptor. It may seem silly, but one Corruptor actually has some potential. This is it, Serral. This is as good of a possibility you're ever going to get. The Void Rays are not here.
He's
gonna go for it. Transfuse, transfuse, transfuse on that one Corruptor. That one Corruptor goes down. We do have a Neural Terror.
2 Neurals.
Yep.
Oh, and he's going to turn them on the Tempest themselves. We are going to see the DPS. The Transfuse on the Queen. It keeps the Neural Parasite alive. He is going to be able to turn it on his opponent's Tempest. Both of them going down. We've now got just 2 Tempests remaining here from ShoWTimE. One of them solo on HP, but it will survive. The Oracle does get that revelation on the Infestor, and the Infestor, it's going to wear off. Then the Oracle goes down. There's just 2 Tempests remaining. He can burrow these units and hide them.
Yep.
And they're going to go underground.
And now he's got
ShoWTimE
shakes
his head.
Yep.
40 minutes. He's going to... Oh, I think he can... No. He's going to wait for the transfuse.
Yeah,
he's going to play it safe.
He can wait until he maxes out, and there's still one Infestor. That one Infestor can Neuroparasite. Sending both Void Rays was a mistake. Sending one Void Ray would have been absolutely okay, but I think sending both Void Rays was a little bit too much. ShoWTimE knows that Serral is just gathering up energy. Serral can obviously eliminate him too.
The transfuses on the Queen as it was Neural Parasited and killing its own Tempests was absolutely unreal. Such an impressive display right there out of Serral. I gotta say, I'm truly impressed.
We have 3 Queens. 3 Queens should be more than enough to pick off a single Tempest. There is still that Infestor as well. I mean, Serral could have waited longer, but he knows that he can always burrow again, and that is exactly what he does. He's going to play this as safe as possible.
He can just Neural.
Yeah, he could, but I think he's going to just make sure that he's got all the transfuse. After fighting for 42 minutes, you don't want to throw it in the end because you're rushing into things, right? ShoWTimE does not have the DPS to easily kill all these buildings. He can start chipping away at the Great Aspire, the Hatch, but...
Oh, the Unburrow. He's being so active with these units. The thing is, there's nothing that ShoWTimE can do to detect. Every time that he neuroparasites, yeah, he can just kill the Tempest or one of the carriers. The Tempest goes down, the second one is gonna fall, and now there's just 2 Void Rays left over. That Tempest is dead. ShoWTimE is running out of units. He's running out of options. And I think Serral has actually done it. GG gets called. What a display. I talked about magic. That was more than magic. That was divinity.
Yona knows it too. He loves it. What an absolutely silly game there. Over 42 minutes of Stargazers PvZ. And it started off with a Spire, a couple of Mutalisk, and then those games are normally relatively straightforward. Either the Zor completely runs over the Protoss or the Mutas don't get the job done, and then the game is kind of over.